Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode.
Hi, today
Hello.
we're going to go right into it because we can't figure out this whole how we intro ourselves.
Can't figure it out.
And so we're going to move right there.
It is
we're gonna
really the most awkward thing ever.
We said this last time too.
So
Today we're going to talk about the word brave, specifically the phrase brave, not safe.
Yep.
And for some of you, you may know if you've been to our house, some of you have seen pictures or you have a piece of artwork and everything like that that says this phrase. And we have in our house in red letters, we had an artist do in wood. It says brave, the word brave that we have always had. We brought it to London with us. That was something important for us to bring.
It's always like the main focal point in kind of our living space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that you can see it and it's right there. But we heard this phrase, years ago, and we latched onto it, and we're going to explain like why we latched onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I first want to say, I think the word brave, most of us will think, and I think even the artwork you have that has this of like a shield and a sword.
Yeah.
And so like we tend to all think about like bravery like that, like yield your sword, like be ready to fight, like that kind of thing. And while that is needed sometimes, that is,
I think for me, it's still part of that.
It's part of it, but I also want to say like, that like fight mentality is not necessarily what we're talking about here, and we're gonna go into it in a little bit more, obviously. But like there is something to that, like yes, bravery, and you know, we see heroes portrayed and stuff like that in movies and that kind of stuff, and bravery portrayed that way. But it also is not like just about like if that doesn't kind of click with you, that's okay. Like that's quite not, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's more to us about the bravery to be yourself, like to be uniquely you, and to try things. Like what would you say on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with that phrase "brave, not safe" for me has always been to not be scared to step out of your comfort zone, to really be open to experiences and people and things that maybe might not be something that you typically would step into, or like thinking about, there's been so many times where it would have been easier to say, nope, that's not for us or whatever, instead of giving something a go, whether we succeeded or failed at that. I think I always want to be, we've talked about it before, but the idea of failing well is something too that is a part of this as well for me. Is like, even if it's something new or whatever, and I'm not really good at it, or that I didn't really enjoy it or whatever, but at least I gave it a go. And so I think that for me, a lot of it is just, again, stepping out of your comfort zone, because I don't want to be the same person I was 5 years ago. In a lot of ways. Like I want to make sure that I'm stepping into things, being brave about certain things that will allow myself to grow into the person that I truly am, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes total sense. And I think when I think about, I had a conversation with our daughter the other day about like, she was like, I don't really like to ask questions in class and stuff like that. And it can be something as simple as that. As I really encouraged her, I was like, find in the next week a way to like speak up and ask one question this week. Like to her, that is a very brave thing. Like she's trying something new. She's trying to build up confidence, that kind of thing. And that seems like a small thing compared to, you guys know, we moved from the United States to the UK. Like those two things are both brave. Like, and
yeah, exactly.
Those two things are both like on, and that kind of thing. And so again, I think sometimes when we think of doing something bravely, it's this big, huge, bold thing. And yes, that is the case for those things. But also there are things in our everyday lives and that kind of thing. And that's going to look different. Like, for me, asking a question in a classroom, I could care less. Like, that's not brave for me. But for our daughter, that's brave for her. Like, that's, and so for each of us, bravery looks different. And it's, again, it's number one, it's being brave to be yourself, to not feel like you have to put on a false self.
Right.
So that all of us can fall into so easily. But it's also then about being brave to, like, just do that one little small inch of thing that pushes you just a little bit. Like you said, like, grows you and that kind of thing. Might make you feel a little uncomfortable. Like, I don't mean uncomfortable in a bad way, like uncomfortable and like, ooh, this is a bit of a challenge, but I'm gonna try it.
Yep.
And that kind of thing. But it's that kind of it's the idea of growth. It's the idea of not being the same person, for always. Like, you're the same person, but it means you're seeing yourself grow in health. You're seeing yourself grow in the way that you challenge yourself and you explore different parts of you, or you go, it's brave to go to therapy and seek health in something. It's brave to be, the whole idea of, like, sometimes when you go first and you share something vulnerably with somebody, like, that enables them to then share. I've never had it where I've shared something. Of course, you figure out who appropriately to be vulnerable with. But, like, I've never had where I've not shared a little piece of me and someone been like, oh, like, either me too, or that makes me feel so much better because I thought it was just me, or whatever it is. Of that's all brave. Like, it all is, I think it's easy as parents to think of things of our kids do. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so brave of you to try going on the bike for the first time, or whatever it may be. And, like, if you can go back to some of those things and then remember what it felt like when you had that, like, you did ride the bike finally for the first time without a parent or a guardian or something, like, on each side of you holding you, of that, like, freedom and that, like, joy you felt. I think that's what this kind of brave is that we're talking about. It's that, like, ooh, you do this next thing and it just really, it
almost,
like,
in some ways, unlocks something in you.
Exactly.
It unlocks something that, whether it's, creates this sense of freedom or this sense of leveling up, we talk about sometimes too, like, whether that's, like, within your, like, something that you're, like, thinking about business wise or, like, professionally, or if it's, like, something like a skill or something like that maybe you've always been interested in, but there's just always been something that's holding you back, like being brave and being able to step into that. And, like, there might be something in that unlocks something new, that creates this new sense of freedom in yourself that, again, I think for me, it just continues to fall back onto the idea of growth and the idea of not being stagnant in that way. And, because I think in a lot of ways we can get so stuck into really our routines and might not push ourselves again. But, like, maybe it's, for me, I'm a really simple eater in some ways.
With food, you mean?
With food.
Okay.
Simple and
yes.
Or plain.
Yes.
Plain. That's another way of saying it. And I think since I've met Maya, but also since we've moved here, I've tried to step out of my comfort zone. I've tried to be.
You've done very well.
Quote unquote.
You were brave to try salad for the first time. Legit, he had never had a salad when we met.
Yeah, that's a really funny story that I never really ate anything green.
It's so weird.
Until I was in university. Like, what?
Several years into university.
And I think, again, so I think it's just that idea of being able to just give something a go and and grow from it in some way,
Well, and it's just like, it goes back to everything else. We shouldn't be comparing our bravery to another's. Like, I look at people who are, like, activists and making huge things and making, like, really putting themselves out there to really make a huge difference and stuff like that. And, like, I look at that and think, gosh, I really should do that, or I want to be like that and that kind of thing. And my bravery looks a bit different, or maybe a bit quieter than that and that kind of thing. Currently, I don't know what will happen in the future, but, and so I think, again, it's being careful not to compare what you see and that kind of thing. And really, like, what is the thing that is brave for you today, or the thing that you're being asked to look into? And I think the thing we have found too, sometimes those brave steps don't always seem logical. Like, I mean, you guys, in one of our past episodes, we have talked about moving like to London and the whole decision process and stuff like that. Like, some of that stuff did not seem logical and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it was a bit brave for us to like step into it and try it or something. It may not seem logical for you to, like, I don't know, take dance lessons in your 50s or something like that, but like, go for it if that's something you're wanting to do and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think that's just, that's what it's about. And I think that's why I think we're constantly telling our kids, like, it's not about you have to be in the fighting stance and fighting mode all the time. That's not what it is about whatsoever. It is about being true to yourself. And it is brave to do that. It's scary to do that because we're going to face rejection. There's just no way around it. Like, that is what is going to happen. And that's hard, especially depending who it's from. Like, different ones will, different rejections will hurt more than others. And that kind of thing. And so, yeah, sorry if you can hear something drilling or a motorcycle or something like in the background. That distracted me for a second. But yeah, I think that it's just, it's different for everybody. It's unique to everybody. And it's really hard to just be true to yourself when the whole world is like, oh, no, you should look like this. You should do this. You should do that. That kind of thing to, be true to yourself is what we're talking about when we talk about being brave. Yeah.
I think a good example too, again, for me is this podcast. I'm not a huge, I really don't like to, in a way, this is
talk
a little
in front of people?
Talk in front of people. But
you're not talking in front of people, though.
I'm not technically talking in front of people. But again, I am sharing something in a very public way. So that's a growth thing for me. That's stepping out and being brave, not safe, in a sense, for me. And so as you were talking, I was trying to think of like thinking that idea of unlocking and freedom and, the bravery of being, true to yourself and who you are and all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking of like, Zane was super into Ninjago, and that is a Lego cartoon kind of thing that
If you know, you
know. But anyways, like the whole premise of that show is about these ninjas who, like, they have to live into their true potential, and when they do that, they unlock this true self, and they are able to, be truly who they are. And I just absolutely love that. And that's kind of, in some ways too, that's what being brave, not safe is for me, is again, that idea that you, there's this thing that's in you, and only by stepping out and being brave and trying things and stepping out of those comfort zones, that you can really only unlock that thing inside you that really allows yourself to come alive. So,
well, and I think that's why we latch on to so many stories, like whether it's a TV show or a movie or a book, like so many plot lines follow exactly what you're saying with Ninjago, of like, we just watched Shang-Chi and like all these people at the end, not to give it away if you haven't seen it, but like, I mean, you can kind of guess in a superhero movie, like somebody's going to have to deal with something in their identity and what they struggle with and stuff like that to like become more true to themselves. And then, you see what happens and stuff. And, but that, I mean, that we're attracted to that storyline and that plot line for a reason. And it's because like, that's what like our inside of us, something's calling us to do that too. And that's why it's brave. It's scary. It's a lot of times like, not easy work to do internally and that kind of thing. You may have to deal with some external things, like as far as like relationships and that kind of stuff. And so it's brave to say to yourself, I'm going to step into this. And some days, like it may literally mean, I mean, we've both been in points of our life that the brave thing you're doing that day is getting out of your bed, like to start the day. Like, let's be real. Like there is a lot of that, or and that kind of thing.
Or to be honest, there's been days where I really don't want that word on our wall.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I just don't want
Or,
that.
I mean, even the
word.
opposite. Sometimes the brave thing is to say, I need rest, and so I'm going to stay in bed
Well, true.
today.
Yeah,
like, so that's why it's so, that's why I personally love it, because it's so unique to each of us for each day, each season, that kind of thing, that is going to look different. It can be brave to say, I'm going to rest and go against things. It can be brave to say, you know what, I'm going to go for it, and that kind of thing. Like, it's just... again, it doesn't have to be the shield and the sword and the fighting like a superhero and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It is more of just like, it's brave to pay attention to what is your mind and your body telling you that you need today, that moment. Like, I really feel like I could use a nap right now. Maybe it's brave for me to take a nap right now. Maybe. But that kind of thing. And so it's not a pressure kind of brave. And when we say brave, not safe, it doesn't mean that, like, it's not, of course we all want comfort and that kind of thing. And there's nothing
Comfort's
wrong.
not bad.
No, it's not bad. It's more of like, am I staying quote unquote safe by not pushing into this one little area that keeps coming up that I feel like I should probably work on that.
Yeah, I think that's more.
That's what
definitely.
it means. It means, like, am I, instead of this one person that keeps coming into my mind constantly, I feel like I should go ask them if they want to get coffee, that I'm just going to go home and watch TV or something like that, because that's the safe thing. And it would be really kind of, I don't know about asking that person to go to coffee. Like, those are the kind of things we're talking about. Like, when it comes to, like, not safe, like, we all obviously want to feel that safety, and we should have places where we can feel safe and comfort and that kind of thing. And but it also takes bravery to build those places, to build those relationships and stuff like that. Like, every time I have a hard conversation with one of our kids, I feel like I'm literally putting on a shield and a sword. Like, okay, we're gonna talk about this topic now, and like that kind of thing a little bit. But like, what it does is it makes me put down those two things for it then to be comforting and safe, and hopefully for them too.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's the reason we have the word in our house. That is, you'll probably hear us, if we haven't already talked about it, multiple times, because obviously we wouldn't have it hanging up for a reminder if it wasn't something important to us. But that's what we mean. We hope it's an encouragement to you. Like we said, if it means I'm going to stay in bed, I'm going to rest today, is brave for you. If it means I'm getting out of bed and I'm doing something today, even if it's just to get up, whatever it may be, we hope it's an encouragement to you. And if you need to hear this again, you can always come back and listen to our sweet voices encourage you.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what they want. So.
Thanks so much for listening, and we encourage you to do that today too. Whatever brave is for you today, to step into it. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.